Alrighty guys, welcome to a demo of my glass shader. I'm going to go ahead and go over how to use it and some of the presets that are built into this shader so that you guys can use it to the best of your abilities. You can see right now we kind of have this cube of ice here. There's a lot we can do with this shader and everything is built into the side material tab here on the right. So whenever you click on an object, you'll see here on the right hand side that we have all of our different attributes of our shader. And there is a whole lot that we can adjust here. So I'm going to go ahead and go over a few of the presets, and then I'm going to go over a quick demo on how all this works. So you'll see I have a bunch of collections set up here on the right hand side. I'm going to go ahead and go over all those right now. So this is our normal standard glass right here. As you can see, it just looks like glass. It looks pretty good. There's nothing too crazy about this. There's a little bit of displacement going on here, but this is your basic glass shader. Let's go ahead and go on to one of my favorite attributes that I've added to this shader, which is the cracked preset. Now this cracked preset is going to give you this really nice stylized cracked glass, which I absolutely love. This can be used for wine glasses. It can be used for damaged items that are made of glass. Pretty much anything that you want to appear like cracked glass, you can use this shader for. And moving on, we're going to go to our dusty shader. So now this one's pretty simple. Basically, we're just adding some dust flakes onto the top of our glass here, which is really nice. And you're probably wondering, can I change the color of the glass? Of course you can. You can go ahead and tint the glass just a little bit if you'd like to. You can kind of give it that Dragon Ball Z orange there if you'd like to. You can really create some amazing glass with this shader. I'm going to go ahead and reset this back because this will be our demo file that will be downloaded. And let's go ahead and go over one of my next favorite ones, which is our fogged look. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this fogged glass looks like. So again, I have different floors set up, different objects for you guys to play around with. If you're looking for that modern touch, kind of like what Windows uses with that sort of diffused glass look, this is basically frosted glass right here. It's more or less what it is. Now there's a lot of different things we can go into with the settings, but I want to go over the rest of the presets. So that is our glass fogged look. We also have our glass frosted look, which is a little bit different. You'll notice if I zoom in here, you can kind of see the difference here. So this is the frosted, right? And if I switch back over to our fogged look, our fogged is much more dense, right? It's almost volumetric, if you will. And we are in the latest version of Blender in Cycles. So if you guys are trying to play around with this shader, that is what we're going to be using. So I do have the latest version of Blender. Now you'll notice if we really zoom in here, this isn't just any ordinary frosted glass, right? We're getting kind of these nice sketchy lines right here. So you're going to get a pretty realistic result as you would see in real life if you're trying to obtain that type of result. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next one. This is more of a realistic glass. So this is going to give you a little bit of everything. It's going to give you kind of a little bit of that fogginess. It's also going to give you, if you really zoom in here, you kind of see how we have this green tint on the side. You're going to get that with some of the volumetrics that are built into the shader. So that's, again, an awesome feature of this shader. All right, next up we have our scratched glass. So let me go ahead and switch back to our other floor. So this is just basically a glass shader with scratches in it, right? And we can adjust all of these attributes as well, which I'll go over as soon as we get into the demo part of this. Next up, we have our stylized glass. So this is, again, a way where we can combine our displacement, our scratches, our dust, and volumetrics all into one thing. And you can see that this does still appear to look like glass, but at the same time, it's stylized, right? It's colored. We have our scratches, our displacement, our surface imperfections. There's a lot of amazing things that you can do with this. And if you play around with it enough, especially with the IOR, you can actually make it look like water if you'd like to. All right, last but certainly not least, we have our warped glass. So let me go ahead and turn our floor back on here. So our warped glass, this is where you're going to see basically our glass sphere, but in a warped sort of manner, right? Where we have that displacement on the surface, so you can get something sort of realistic, right? Glass isn't going to be perfect in real life. Even if it's perfectly flat and almost machined, you're still going to have a few surface imperfections. So this is something to play around with here. All right, now let's go ahead and last but not least go into ice, and then we'll go into our demo. So this is our ice shader, and this is another preset that's built into this pack. And as you can see, it looks just like ice, right? It's cracked. It kind of has that foggy look. I decided to go with a cube for this one instead of just a regular sphere to kind of give you guys that ice cube sort of feel. And if you would like to, you can even turn up the displacement even more. All right, and you can see I'm doing this on the right-hand side. And you can adjust the scale, and you can see how that sort of warps the surface there. So that's kind of how you get a result like that. All right, now let's go ahead and reset that. I'm gonna go back into my demo mode here. Now with our demo object, I'm just gonna go over all of the different settings that we can play with that I've built into this shader. So let's go ahead and start off while I'll go over here on the right. You can see we have all of these different drop downs. We have glass, displacement, scratches, dust, volumetrics, and cracking. So let's go ahead and go over each one of those individually. Well, first of all, glass. This is basically just your standard glass shader, right? We have our IOR, which is our index of refraction. Right now it's at 1.5. If I set it to 2, you'll notice how it reflects the whole world a little bit differently. And then if we go ahead and we set this roughness value, this is where you can get to that frosted glass look, right? So this is really where that frostedness will come from besides just our volumetric. So if you want to have a nice frosted look, you can turn that roughness value up very easily. You can of course also change the color. We'll just go with kind of a blue color for this demo here. Now, here's one of my favorite things, the displacement. Now, a lot of people can set this up manually themselves if they'd like to. I built it into the shader because I wanted to make it easy for you guys. Our intensity value is basically going to start to warp that surface, right? So you can see how that surface is now warped. It has those imperfections, right? So that's our intensity. Now, the scale is the scale of the displacement. So the higher this value is, the more kind of warpedness you'll get with the shader, if that makes sense. So if you're looking for something that might look like sea glass, you can kind of turn this scale down, turn that roughness up, and now you have something that sort of resembles like a sea glass look, right? And that may be a preset that I even add in there. But you can see how when we start to play with these settings, we can really get something that's custom just to our liking. You know what? Maybe this isn't imperfect enough. Maybe we need to add more scratches. Let's go ahead and open the scratch dropdown. Let's turn up the opacity of those scratches. Now you can see on the surface, we have even more scratches here. Turn down the displacement intensity a little bit so you can see those scratches a little bit more. Now you can begin to see those scratches surfacing, and we can adjust the scale of those as well. So if we want those scratches to appear more jagged like that, we can adjust the scale down. If we want them to appear more linear, we can adjust the scale back up. All right, dust. So in this case, I guess this would be like a sea glass. I'll turn the roughness up a little bit. The dust itself, there would be some surface dust. So I'll go ahead and change the color of that surface dust to maybe a blue. I'll turn the opacity up, and now you can see that we have this surface dust on top of our sea glass. This would probably be a little bit less apparent if this really was true sea glass. So I'd probably turn the roughness up and turn the opacity down to maybe like a little bit less than halfway for our surface, right? And you can see how we can start to get a really great result here. Now, volumetrics, this is to add a little bit more depth to your glass shader. So if you'd like to, you can turn that opacity up, and you can see that it becomes even more fogged, right? And this will take a quick second to render here because volumetrics are pretty intensive on a CPU or a GPU. But as you can see right here, we do have that really fogged look. So if you have a really old piece of sea glass that you found on the beach, this could be a way to easily integrate that into your material. I would probably choose an opacity of maybe 0.3 because I feel like it'll just be fogged enough where that light can't get all the way through and it gets trapped within the glass, but it still looks like sea glass. And of course, last but not least, we have our cracking values, and this is going to give you kind of that texture on the surface. So if we turn that up, you'll see how now we have a cracked surface. I'm going to turn the volumetrics all the way down for this so you guys can see that cracked surface rendering in real time. And there it is right there. I'll go ahead and zoom in. Now, we of course have the opacity, which is how much the cracks are going to show up on the surface, but we also have the scale as well. So if you want your cracks to appear bigger, you turn down that scale to 2, and you can see right now, we still have a cracked surface, but in a way that makes more sense to us, maybe for the object scale, right? And then last but not least, the randomness, right now it's set to 1. If I go ahead and bump that up to maybe 4, you can see how the cracks are a little bit more random and jagged. So a lot of this is set up with Blender's built-in shader editor, of course, and I just want to quickly show you the node group so you can get a little appreciation for the work I put into this, because a lot of people are interested in the nodes, and of course, if you download this, you can experiment with all these nodes yourselves. These are kind of the nodes that I set up for this project. You can see we have our cracks up here, volumetrics, gradient, glass. Gradient is still in development, so don't worry, we will eventually have the gradient option. Scratches, displacement, dust. This is a version 2 of the dust. But you can see how it's all connected right here, and when you guys do download and buy this shader, you'll be able to experiment with that yourself. I do highly suggest you watch this video a couple times just so you can get the hang of how to use the shader. But basically, if you're familiar with the material editor, this shouldn't be a huge issue for you. It should be pretty easy to get the custom look that you want. Again, I think another thing that I saw recently was like that Dragon Ball Z look. So let me go ahead and make that real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and turn down the opacity for everything else. You can see already we kind of have that orange look, and that's I just quickly did that in a couple of seconds there. So if I wanted to, I could place those stars inside, and then we would have that Dragon Ball, right? Which is exactly kind of what I would be looking for here. Displacement, I like to keep that at a lower value. If you're looking for something a little bit more realistic, I just want to show you in these reflections here. Here's with no displacement, right? So this is just perfect glass with no imperfections. If that's what you're going for, all good, right? If you're going for something a little bit more realistic, take a look at these window reflections right here. I'll just go ahead and turn this up to 0.1, and already you can see there's a little bit of a shimmer, right? A little bit of a distortion. This is a more realistic glass feel. This might be what you're going for. Last but not least, that's pretty much the demo, but I'll just go over a couple more things with you guys. If you wanted to change the floor up, you can totally do that, right? Sometimes even turning the floor off is fine too. You kind of have that nice orthographic perspective here. I also have a metal plate that I've integrated in here, and this is for a demo for our, where is it? Our frosted ones right here. So I'll go ahead and turn that off. This is just a way to show you how background will appear underneath another object. So if you are experimenting with this shader and you want to kind of get that frosted glass look, right, that glass morphism, if you will, make sure you have another object behind your glass object, okay? And this is just me showing you guys so you can experiment with this yourself. Now, last, I'll go ahead and show you how to apply this to another object, because if you're new to Blender, you may not know how to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and show you now. So I'm going to go ahead and add in an object. I'll just add in a cylinder here. I'll go ahead and bring this cylinder up, and I'll hide everything else. Okay, now we have our cylinder. I'm just going to go ahead and click the material dropdown on the right, and I'm just going to choose any of these presets. How about we go with, let's see, how about glass stylized? And there it is right there. I'll shade this auto smooth, and I think I'll also add a bevel to this to make it a little bit more like rounded off on the top here. I'm actually going to change this over to glass realistic. That's a little bit better. Now, the only thing here that I'll mention is the volumetrics. I'm going to go ahead and turn those down, and you'll see, if we shade this auto smooth here, and we, oopsies, we'll apply that scale as well. You can see that we have a very nice glass object, and we very quickly were able to apply our materials. And you can just simply use the drop down on the right to choose any material that you want. This is our ice material, so if you wanted to quickly turn that cylinder into ice, you could do that as well. And remember, the background and the environment around your object is going to drastically affect the way that it looks. So for example, you can see right now, this is with a dark background, and this is with a lighter background, right? So depending on what you have in your background, it's going to drastically affect the way that your shader looks. A lot of people may already know this, but if you're new to Blender, your lighting has everything to do with how your material is going to turn out. Let's go over a few more of these presets, and then I'll let you guys go ahead and download it and play around with the shader for yourselves. This is our fogged preset. We also have this was our demo mode, right, where we had that orange glass. And then let's go ahead and look at the warped. I want to see the warped on this. Now, this is really cool. I really like the warped one because it gives the glass a lot of imperfections, which is really what you're looking for if you are looking for sort of a more realistic glass approach. Again, this works on any object, and just to prove that to you, I'll just go ahead and add in, let's see, Suzanne here, our monkey, and we'll just go ahead and give that maybe a subdiv surface real quick. That's better. We'll shade that smooth, and then we'll just apply any shader that we want. How about, this is our glass basic, right? This is our basic glass. How about glass cracked? Now we have a cracked version of Suzanne. We can add the dusty version, right? And of course we can adjust all these settings as we need. This is kind of our warped version. This is a more realistic version here. You can kind of see how the surface is warped if we really zoom in here. And let's go ahead and try a few more. How about glass fogged? This one's one of my favorite, especially when you have objects underneath that you can see through. How awesome is that? Now, on top of all this, with this shader pack, you're also going to have access to the render settings that I typically use. So when you guys go to render something out, we'll just do a quick render example. I'm working with 150 samples, 1920 by 1920. I'll set that to 100%. Let's just go ahead and do a quick render example and see how this turns out. Make sure that you have anything you don't want in your render turned on or off. So I'll go ahead and hide Suzanne here, and we'll go ahead and turn on, how about we'll do the ice cube with how about a dark background, and we'll just see how long this takes to render, just to give you guys a little example here for our demo. Let's go ahead and render this out and hope that we don't have anything in our render that's not supposed to be in there. And here we go. And it looks like it's going to take about 2 minutes, but it should be quicker than that. Let's go ahead and see how the quality is coming out. Not bad. Now, I actually turn my denoiser off for these renders. I just find that a little bit of grain in the render, a little bit of noise is totally okay with me. It really depends on like if you're working on a client project or if you're trying to create something just for yourselves or for your Instagram, whatever it is. I like a little bit of noise. Now this is too much noise, so I'd probably turn up the sample count, but overall this render will still turn out pretty nice, especially when you consider that you're really looking at it from like this distance, right? You're not going to be this zoomed into a render. And if you know that someone will be zooming into a high quality render, of course, increase that pixel count, and you're going to want to increase your denoiser, or probably turn on your denoiser if you have something with a higher sample count. That's fine. I just find that sometimes the denoiser will destroy the look of the ice. So if you guys are really looking for like a high quality render, you may want to keep that denoiser off. So here's our completed render. And I just want to zoom in because I want to prove there is noise, right? I'm not saying there's not noise here. We're at about 150 samples. You can go ahead and bump that up to 500 and you should have almost no noise, especially these little white specks up here. If you do turn on your denoiser, keep in mind, it will affect the result of the render, okay? So just know, this shader, it's not going to be the shader's fault if the render comes out bad, right? You have to have good lighting. You have to have the right material choice for the object. You're going to want to make sure your settings look good. So those are things to consider, okay? And if you really wanted to, you could go ahead and bump up. What I'll do sometimes is I'll bump this value up to 200%. Right under the resolution. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do 200% for the resolution. This is just an example. And then I'll go ahead and turn our max samples to like 25. Right? Let's go ahead and render that out and just see how long that takes. It should take much less time than the other ones. Yep, I can already see the time going down quite quickly. Now you'll notice this is a much bigger image. Like as I zoom in, you can already see the quality is much higher, right? But again, we're sacrificing our sample count here just a little bit. But let's go ahead and see. It says there's only 45 seconds left, and I believe that. Even less, probably less than 20 or 30 seconds left. And you can just see how the quality is still pretty good. You do get a little bit of noise, so you could turn on your denoiser at this higher res. But when you zoom out, right, you're not always going to be able to tell that right away. All right, we got about 8 seconds left. It's almost done. Let's go ahead and see what it's going to look like. And there's your completed render. Again, you still have the noise, but at this rate, with this higher resolution, you may be able to get away with a denoiser. But I think this came out pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with this result here. And I think that pretty much concludes our demo. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial / demo of my new glass shader. Again, I have all the presets here for you guys that you can play around with. And I really hope that you enjoy this shader. Please drop a comment down below. Let me know what else I should add to this shader or what shader I should create next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.